Okay, so welcome back to the channel, and today what we've got here is we have got all of, well, not all of them, but some of the biggest English, well, British, not English, there's one Welsh and a few Scottish. So British then. British derbies, and I am going to be ranking them. We've got massive derby. That's just like absolutely massive. It's one of the biggest games. It's one of the biggest rivalries there is. And it's also got a bit of history. Sometimes that could be a factor. And Fiery game, that's more or less to do with the history now. And that's just when you watch it, it's intense. Well, not intense, because that's not the right word. But it's really fiery, and it can often be pushing and shoving. It's still a pretty big derby, but it's not massive. Then intense is intense and quite intense. And entertaining, not really intense, but a little bit intense. It's just an entertaining game to watch. Decent. It's a decent rivalry. A minor derby, it's not that big. Maybe it's just on there because it's they are. Or just because of other things, but yeah, it's a bit of a minor derby. So let's start off Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday. Now, I don't want to put it all the way up in fiery game. I don't want to put it as low as entertaining, because they're often championship teams. It's not that entertaining. So I think we're going to go intense, because it will be an intense game when they play. If they play, not in the same league this year, but when they do play, quite an intense game it can be. So, going to put that in intense. Then we got Rangers and Celtic, the Glasgow derby. It can't go anywhere else except for massive derby. It's just an absolutely massive game. Of course, all of them are pretty big games for the club, but for everyone else, they might not be so big. So that's kind of what we're basing it off. And yeah, Celtic Rangers is one of the biggest derbies here. Then we've got Manchester Derby. The Manchester Derby is good, but it's not a really fiery game, to be honest. Don't normally see fiery stuff happening. So I think it's got to go entertaining or intense, because it's always entertaining. And sometimes it's quite intense. So I think we're going to go intense, but below Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday, the Sheffield Derby. So then we got the Tyneside Derby, Newcastle Sunderland. Not massive. It's fairly big. So I'm going to go and put it in entertaining. Entertaining game. Bit of a rivalry there. Of course, Newcastle are normally the worst team, but nowadays they're the better team. I just realised their badges are actually really similar. Look at that. But that's not the point here. It's an entertaining derby. Now, the Dundee Derby. I'm sorry, but I think this has to go in minor derby. Mainly just because Dundee FC just isn't really that big a club. Dundee, fairly big, but it's got to go minor derby. Sorry, but yeah. Merseyside Derby, I don't know whether to put it in minor derby. It's minor derby or decent. I think I'm actually going to go and put it in minor derby. Now you're Liverpool's one of the best teams. Why? Liverpool have just always been better than Everton. Everton have won it. Yeah, they won it, but normally, most of the time, it just goes to Liverpool. And it's just not like a massive game. So actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to put it in decent. But it's not like massive, like the others. So yeah. Then, no. Okay then. North London derby. This is a great derby. Yeah, every year, when it's on, I will watch it. And it's not a massive, well, it is a really big derby, but it's not like in that category. It is definitely a fiery game, so it's going to go up there. Then we got Cardiff and Swansea. Pretty big, especially because they're like the. But I think what makes this a bit lower is just because they're not very good, and they're like not in their own league. They're just in the English league. It's a South Wales derby, but they're just in the English, like, they're in the English pyramid. So they're just not like. If there was a Welsh league, or it was just Welsh teams, like the Scottish League is, this would probably be like as big as Celtic and Rangers, because they're the best two. They would be the two competing for the title, as well as also being really close. Like, Swansea and Cardiff aren't too far off, both South Wales. So yeah, but yeah, not much so. So I think, just because it's like, they're always quite far down, I think it's only going to go in entertaining, but it is going to go above the Tyneside derby. We've got the East Midlands derby. This is fairly big, considering most of the time the two were in the Championship, with Forest is in the Premier League and Derby's in League One. Now, this is quite a big derby. It is, and yeah, I'm going to go put it at the top of intense. It's an intense derby. Now, the M23 derby. Brighton and Palace. Minor derby. They're not even that close. I don't know how it's a derby. Like, fine, people have called it a derby and then it becomes like a big game for the teams. I think Brighton's more rivals with teams like Bournemouth and Southampton that are all actually on the south coast. Crystal Palace is in London. So for that, it's got to go right at the bottom. Sorry, but it just has to. It's like, what? What on earth? So then we've got the Birmingham derby. Aston Villa and Birmingham. It's a decent game. So, yeah. We're going to put it in decent. But yeah, it's going to be above the Merseyside derby. It's going to slot in right there. Manchester United and Leeds. It's the Roses derby because, obviously. Lancashire and Yorkshire. So, we've got Lancashire and Yorkshire. Kind of like rival counties. So it's a bit of a derby then for the two teams, isn't it? So obviously we're probably going to change stuff a little bit as we go through, but yeah. But I don't think it's as big as the Manchester derby. So we're going to put it, and also just because Leeds just isn't on the standard of Manchester United, we're going to put it in decent, just below the Merseyside derby. Then we got Ipswich and Norwich, the East Anglian derby, and especially this year, because these two are on such similar level this season, it's going to be such a good one to watch this season. But yeah, both are normally in the Championship, and so it's a pretty good derby, and it's entertaining. So we're going to put it in entertaining, just below the Tyneside derby. Then we've got the West London derby. You can put it there for now. That's not where it's going to end up, or maybe it will. The West London derby is Fulham and Chelsea. Yeah, most recent, Chelsea won 2-0. It was only a couple of days ago, actually. Well, it was last week, but yeah. And it was a decent derby. But I don't think it's as good as the Merseyside derby. And now that I'm thinking about this, I actually think the Merseyside derby should move up to entertaining. I think it is entertaining. I've changed my mind on that. Merseyside derby's going up. But yeah, West London derby is going to sit there. Now we got the Edinburgh derby, Hibs and Hearts. I think the teams that are always in like the same city or like that sort of derby, especially like because the most Scottish teams, it's always going to be high up. And I think it's going to go in fiery game just below the North London derby. Also got a little thing I want to change. I'm just going to switch around Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday, so the Sheffield derby with the East Midlands derby. Just because I just think, and also the Manchester derby is going to go above it. But yeah, so then we've got Portsmouth and Southampton, the South Coast derby. Not much to say really. They're close by, but it's definitely a minor derby, so in it goes there. Now here we go. Yet another massive derby. I don't think it's top, but it is a massive derby. It's below Celtic Rangers, but the Northwest derby, massive. Because they're close, they've always had a history of rivalry, and they both had a history of being very successful, both in England and Europe. United slightly more successful in England, Liverpool slightly more successful in Europe. But yeah. So, Liverpool and Man U, Northwest derby, right up there. Now the Lancashire derby, if you're from Lancashire, it's fairly big. No, not the Lancashire, Yorkshire derby. From York, only big, but not so big. So that's right in there. Blackburn, Burnley, right there, decent. Alright, there we go. Another fiery one. Up into the fiery game section. Nottingham Forest v Notts County. So they haven't played for a while because Notts County had been chilling in non-league. But they're back into League 2 now, Notts County, whilst Forest are in the Premier League. But when these two have played before, massive. It's a big game and it goes in fiery derby. I don't think it's quite in the massive section, but it's a big game. East London, just because they never really... Just because both just haven't really been that good sides. I think it's just got to go minor derby. This one, if it wasn't for the history, this would be a minor derby. They're not even that close. But there was Wimbledon was a club. Then they decided to move to Milton Keynes and rename themselves Milton Keynes. But all the fans stayed in Wimbledon and created their own club called AFC Wimbledon. And that's, how the derby came around. And just because of the history, it definitely goes in decent. I mean, it's not an amazing one to watch, but it goes in decent because of the history. And then Black Country Derby is going to slot in at entertaining. So quickly, just going to have a little scan through this. Nothing really I want to change here, I think. I think I've got a pretty good tier list going on there. So yeah, that's it. That's all the derbies. Yeah, like and subscribe, and comment if any, other tier making video ideas I can do next. Also, if I should do one with like derbies from around the world, not just British, because like you get El Clasico and those, like all the German derbies. I can do one. So yeah, like, subscribe, comment down below if you want me to make something like that. So yeah, see you next time.